Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So as usual today, let's just get into it. Check out essentially what happened in the market and what we can expect for tomorrow. Now, I believe Monday is actually a day off in the market. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Monday is a day off in the market for American markets, of course. So keep that in mind, I guess. But nonetheless, just jump right into it. So Tesla, the market literally just closed 12 seconds ago. Tesla ending the day, beautiful bounce up today, 7.4%, ending the day at $707 with 54 cents. Now, at some point of the day, we were up almost like pretty close to 10% actually, which was fantastic. So overall, a very solid bounce. Now, this is kind of what I want to start seeing, which is good. This is also kind of what I was saying. Remember how a few videos ago, maybe like honestly at this point, 2 days ago, I think it might have been like Tuesday, I was saying how like whenever we're like falling like this, first of all, it's not natural just to keep falling, right? Similar to how it is, but how whenever you see comments when we're already fell this much and then people start making stupid comments like, oh, you know, we're going down to like 500 tomorrow, or like, you know, by the end of the week, 500. When you see those kind of comments, it's when it's time to start, you know, potentially slowly flipping bullish, in my opinion, or at least for some kind of bounce. Anyways, nonetheless, the point is the fact that we had a beautiful bounce today and we are sitting at a pretty good spot. So we are above the 5-day moving average. We're above the 10-day moving average as well. If you guys want to see where that is, it is. So the 5-day moving average currently is sitting at, let's double check that one more time. 666 apparently is where the 5-day moving average is sitting at, which is great. So we're well above that, which is fantastic. And we're also well above the 10-day moving average, which is a bit more of a solidified, you know, level that you want to stay over. We're just barely over that. The 10-day moving average is essentially at 700. So we want to essentially try to maintain above that. Now, this is why I also said several times how it's important to have that kind of 3-day rule where, you know, if you break below or underneath something fairly important, you know, it's just a matter of like, just because one day closed below it or above it doesn't mean it's, you know, it's all done and whatever, you know, you want to see consistency essentially. So just because, you know, we came up above 700, which is great, by the way, I do like the close above 700. That's very, very nice. It's quite bullish. Again, keep that in mind, guys. I did say this several times. That's a good start. It's a great start, but it's not done yet, right? You know, the RSI just right over the kind of the average, which is great, you know, but we did the same thing here and we still crashed right below it. So keep that in mind. I don't like, this is good and I like what I'm seeing, but I want to see this continue. I want to see this strength continue. Will it though is the question. I don't know. I actually think we might lose the 10-day moving average temporarily, but I think as long as we hold at the very least the 5-day moving average, I think we can definitely, you know, start feeling a little bit better about a potential actual bounce follow through, which is going to be great. Because the main thing we want to see after a move like this is essentially follow through. Now, that doesn't mean that, you know, if we get, you know, a red day tomorrow or like something like that, that's a bad thing. That's fine. Ideally, at the very least, like worst case scenario, I want to, at the very least, if it's a red day, let's say tomorrow or the next couple of days, I want to at least stay above the 5-day moving average, which will slowly start moving upwards. Even though today's at 666, you know, it will start slowly following, you know, the stock price itself, the candles, if you will. So it will start slowly going up. So it won't be like 666 tomorrow, for instance. It might be like, I don't know, 670 or something. But the point is that I want to maintain above it. And ideally, I also want to maintain above 680. That's kind of what I'm personally seeing. Now, we are currently in this trend over here, this downtrend. Another way you can potentially look at it in terms of, you know, the way this downtrend can be played is something like this as well, right? This could be something like this red line here. So either of these breaking, I think would be a decent sign. So, you know, that's something else to keep in mind as well. Which, you know, the one I just showed you guys isn't that far off. Like tomorrow, there's a chance we can break it. So we'll see what happens with that, of course. But nonetheless, I am feeling pretty good about this overall movement right now. I want to take a quick look actually at the MACD. So let's remove... I guess we'll remove the 5-day moving average for now. We'll put in the MACD. Let's see what the MACD is showing us on the daily. Of course, you can see it's starting to flip a lot more bullish. You can see it's slowly getting ready to cross, but it hasn't crossed yet. So the MACD isn't really bullish yet, but it's starting to approach the bullish area, which is great. I do like to see that. Take a quick look at it on the weekly. See how it's looking at like on the weekly. The weekly is not looking as hot. Weekly is looking at much uglier. You can see here it's still making lower lows. We'll see what tomorrow brings, of course. There still is of course tomorrow, but yeah, the MACD on the weekly still is not looking too great, which overall tells me that we are overall in a net bearish downtrend still, until this on the weekly can start, you know, proving that you know, wrong essentially. Same thing with the RSI. You can see the RSI is still making lower lows, still well below the average. So overall on the weekly time frame, which essentially just means like on a, you know, a prolonged time frame, not like the next like week or something like that, but the next like weeks to 2 months even, we are still overall in a downtrend, right? That still hasn't changed. So, which is why I also said, you know, the other day, where even if Tesla does end up rallying, let's say up to like, I don't know, 800 and something or whatever, we're still in a downtrend. We're still technically in a downtrend, right? So that hasn't changed at all. So that's why I want people to be, you know, optimistically cautious, or cautiously optimistic, I guess, on these kind of bounces, right? As great as they are. So keep that in mind, guys. You know, don't get, you know, too, I guess, excited just yet. It's very important to keep your cool in this kind of market. So the Bollinger Bands, you can see on the daily, same thing, right? Similar concept here. Let's remove the moving average for now. The Bollinger Bands as well, you can see the white part of it, which is usually where we bounce to at the very least, right? So another way you can continue look at it is the Bollinger Bands. You can think of the white one as kind of like a moving average as well, in a way where, you know, if we're just consistently above it, the white one, then, you know, we're probably going to be in an uptrend. If we're consistently below it, kind of like we saw here, right? As we fell below it, we kind of started getting rejected, kind of tried up over here, but still got rejected, fell underneath. And then as we kind of start falling down, you know, and this essentially overall led us to falling downwards, right? So same concept here. So the Bollinger Band at the moment, the white part of course is sitting at around 770. That is going to slowly start coming down to meet the candle, of course. So we'll see what happens with that. But that's another thing I'm kind of looking for. And it's also kind of in line with this overall trend break that, you know, I do want to eventually see happen. So we'll see what happens with that. Another thing you can potentially look at is, of course, you know, let's say on the weekly, for instance, you know, how high can this bounce go? Let's say this bounce is, you know, an actual good bounce, and, you know, where can it potentially lead us is, you know, of course, the question, right? So in this case, we can draw some Fibonacci's here, and then this can give us a rough idea as to where we can expect to see the bounce, right? The first of which is going to be this 0.23 level, which I don't really put too much weight on it personally. That's around 747. I definitely think we'll break that. The main one I'll personally be looking out for is the 0.382 and the 0.5. Those are the first two major ones I'll be looking for, being at around 820 and around 880, somewhere around that general level are the first two levels I will be looking at. So the first of which being 820. So we'll see what happens with that and where that brings us. That would, of course, also essentially mean that we will most likely break out of this kind of, you know, downtrend that we are currently in. That is something that is pretty important as well. So that's essentially what I'm seeing on a slightly longer time frame, where it's a great bounce. But again, you know, as long as we can maintain above those moving averages, that's great. And then I want to see how we, of course, react to the Bollinger Band as we get closer to the white part, if we just get rejected and slap back down or whatever, right? So we'll see what happens as we approach that potentially in the coming days here. Another thing to look at, of course, you guys know, is going to be the 1 hour is a decent time frame that I like to look at. Now, one thing I'm personally seeing here on a slightly shorter time frame is a potential inverted head and shoulders being played out, right? As we kind of, you know, just kind of plummeted all the way down here, we are potentially forming an inverted head and shoulders. So we'll see what happens with that. This could be the shoulder, this could be the head, and we could potentially rally up to somewhere around maybe 760 or so, give or take. Probably get slapped back down, which will also line up with the trend line, maybe slap back down. And as long as we ideally don't really fall below like 700 again, ideally 700, but at the very least, in my opinion, 680. As long as those two levels hold, assuming, you know, this happens after we already went back up to this kind of general 760 level, that, in my opinion, will hold the inverted head and shoulders, and then we can potentially off of that rally to the upside. However, if we kind of go all the way up to somewhere around that 760, come back down to 700 or especially 680, and then break like 680 for instance, and fall back down to like, you know, 650, that's still not that bad, but in my opinion, that would also probably destroy the pattern, and that would no longer be valid. So that's something else to keep in mind. So ideally, we don't want to break 680 again if possible. But for now, we'll be fine if we break it for now. But again, it's more of if we come up all the way up to 760-ish, and then we show enough weakness to actually fall back down that far. That would be like the kind of the thing that wouldn't make much sense and would show just a lot more weakness than expected. That's another thing that I would personally be looking at as well. But other than that, guys, that's essentially my current, I guess, analysis, or currently what I'm seeing. So those are the levels I'm looking out for. So what do we want to see for continuation? Again, like I said, you know, you want to stay above the 5 moving average. We're probably going to fall below the 10 for now, but ideally, at the very least, you want to stay above the 5. And if we do have a red day, let's say tomorrow, ideally, I also want to hold, you know, maybe like 680 at the very worst case scenario. I don't want to fall below 650. An absolute worst case scenario will be 620, right? If we somehow get back to 620, which again, it's possible, that would essentially, you know, form another double bottom, which wouldn't be too bad. Potential triple bottom if you consider this one a 630. I mean, it's pretty close. But pretty much like the absolute worst case scenario that you don't want to see happen is a break below this kind of 620 line. If that ever breaks at any point ever, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's in a week from now, or even a month from now, if at any point this breaks, that means that, you know, the stock is still essentially in correction mode, and we're probably going to be falling down below to at least 600, if not lower. So that's like the ultimate like level that you want to watch out for. But in terms of kind of, you know, keeping this uptrend, if you will, we can actually go back to the 15-minute here, kind of get a rough idea as to, you know, where you can potentially off of this bounce, assuming this is like the short-term top for now, for the next couple of days or so, where we can potentially see a drawdown too. And if we kind of, throw it up something like along the lines of this, we can potentially see something along the lines of, maybe like the 670. I wouldn't be too surprised. You can see the 0.382 here at the 680. So again, somewhere around that 680 to 670-ish level is where I would personally be perfectly okay with the drawdown, a red day, and kind of hold that general level into a follow-up to the upside one more time, which I think is going to happen probably. That's my current best guess, if you will. A drawdown to somewhere around that level, probably hold, and then probably look for a bounce up. Most likely get rejected by this trend line, but maybe not. We'll see. But then once we break the trend line, once we potentially go above the Bollinger Band, like I mentioned earlier, the white part of it, the white line, once we break that, for instance, as well, that's when I think we can really start discussing, truly like where we can actually, go after that, which would be really, really exciting to see. But overall, I think it's a pretty solid day, almost 8%, which is fantastic. Not disappointed whatsoever, and the best part is that it's done on pretty decent volume as well, 35 almost million volume. You can see definitely passing these levels over here, the majority of them, which is a good sign in my opinion. That means it's not like a low volume rally. So there is some strength and almost like some foundation behind it, if that makes any sense at all. So all in all, I'm actually pretty happy with the movement today. I definitely want to see some follow through. That doesn't mean that a red day tomorrow, for instance, would be a bad thing. I gave you guys the levels to watch out for if tomorrow is a red day, and where we want to kind of maintain it in order to keep this momentum alive and keep kind of following through. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm seeing. Let me know what you guys think down below, and I'll see you guys for tomorrow's update. Peace.